Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. We've got our next Bad Batch character. Mercenary Hunter is arriving. We're going to look at the insights, the tips, break down and analyze the kit, quick look at the gear, and some of the squad synergies now that we have a third piece. Hunter arrives as a light side mercenary Bad Batch support character with the attributes. Marked is going to be a major mechanic along with Soldier of Fortune. He's going to be adding that to the squad. He has a big cooldown ability that must be managed in order to use his electric staff on his second special, and Marked is going to allow the Bad Batch to focus on a single enemy and use with target practice. With the tips, the unique provides multiple opportunities to use Marked, gain stacks of target practice, reduce the cooldown of that second special. He has a Territory War Omicron, which is going to boost that cooldown mechanic, and Hunter marks are going to give the squad buffs and reduce the enemy's defense and inflict offense down. So there's a lot of synergy going on there. Transitioning to our kit breakdown and analysis, the basic ability DC-17 Blaster, physical damage to the target enemy and inflict speed down. Just remember Batcher's kit, how important it is for Batcher to go fast, take a lot of turns. She has her own speed up and speed down mechanics. This is just going to synergize with that and make sure the squad is getting a lot of turns before the enemy can take too many. During Hunter's turn, call a random Bad Batcher attacker ally to assist, and all attacker allies gain crit chance. I would presume that there's going to be further mechanics here. Right now, the attacker is Batcher. I think it's safe to assume that Crosshair will be as well. This next part here is what this basic ability is all about. CG writes it a little weird, so I'm going to reword it in my own way. If the target enemy is marked, all Bad Batch attacker allies gain 5% offense stacking. That's up to a max of 50 till the encounter end. And the target enemy has their defense reduced by 5% stacking, max of 50, which can't be resisted. With how fast the squad is, we're likely to hit those maxes pretty quickly, and we're going to see a nice boost on those attackers, and those marked enemies are going to get significantly easier to take out. Our first special, Take a Shot, this is a cooldown of 2. That's a very quick turnaround. If no enemies are marked, inflict marked on the target enemy 2 turns. Now what we need to keep in mind here is that Batcher also applies marked on her special, and we may even get additional characters who have some marked mechanics. But for the time being, we have Batcher who does not have a conditional marked. This one is conditional, so I don't actually think we're going to be relying on this part of the ability too often. This is going to be a bonus. If there's a situation where marked is not on the field, we have a way to reapply it to make sure it is always there. What I think this ability is much more about is the rest here. All Bad Batch allies gain offense up and protection up to 50%, so we're getting survivability and an offensive boost, which pairs with call all Bad Batch attacker allies to assist, dealing 30% less damage. So that offense up helps soften the blow of this damage reduction. And because of that short cooldown, that damage reduction is not too much of a big deal because we're actually going to be calling these attacker assists very often. Our second special, This Will Hurt, it's a cooldown of 30, and this ability starts on cooldown. So deal physical damage to the target enemy equal to 100% of their max health, increased to 200% if they are marked, and that's unevadable. So this ability feels like a soft ultimate. It's going to be a win condition. It's going to take a long time to get there, but once we use it, we are going to be able to target a marked character and knock them off the board. And the rest of the ability is going to ensure an easier cleanup because this ability will also inflict AoE shock, which can't be evaded, and inflict protection disruption, which can't be evaded or resisted. So this will make everyone vulnerable, make sure they don't have buffs, and we can finish them off quickly because we will also get Bad Batch allies gain 100% defense penetration stacking until the encounter end. Probably, at least within Grand Arena context, not utilize this ability more than once per battle, but once we do, we are going to make them lose protection protection, and we're going to have that defense penetration to be able to get through their remaining health very quickly. I'll return to this later as we get through the rest of the kit, but this feels like an ability that can save or prevent a battle from being lost. But if a battle is already going well, we may never actually use it, or if we use it, it's going to be redundant. We were going to win anyway. So the degree to which I care about it, I think, is pretty low. At least in a grand arena context, this does feel like an ability that is going to matter much more in other game modes, specifically territory wars when you get to it. But I also can imagine how in territory battles this will be usable. Our first unique, Focus Cooperation. This is an Omicron and Zeta ability. At the encounter start, all Bad Batch allies gain 50% max protection. And this is a signal that at least on those circles, we probably want a protection primary, and everywhere else, we're probably going to want to have a percent protection secondary. Whenever an enemy is marked, all Bad Batch allies recover 7% health. So with the amount of characters that can apply marked, this will happen a decent amount. It's adding a little bit of survivability, but 7% is not a huge amount. But keep in mind that Fugitive also has some mechanics that are going to be recovering health and protection, so all this little bit is going to start adding up. Whenever a marked enemy is damaged by a Bad Batch ally, if the ally with the lowest turn meter is Bad Batch, they gain speed up for a turn. This feels like a bonus, nothing to rely on, can't control for it, but it'll incidentally help out from time to time. Whenever marked expires on an enemy, inflict daze and healing immunity. This I like because it's just a little component of control and vulnerability added to the opponent. This is going to be constantly happening throughout the battle. It's just going to shut down healing, turn meter, assists, all those kinds of control abilities. I always like to see them. Next, at the start of the marked enemy's turn, inflict offense down. That's unavailable. Another thing that just helps, nothing major, but we're just getting a lot of accumulation of little things that are making this ability stronger and stronger. Nothing in a decisive way, but all providing assistance. Whenever a marked enemy is defeated, AoE expose enemies and reduce cooldown. This will hurt by 5. Now that AoE expose is nice because it's going to make it easier to knock out the next character and maybe bring down the cooldown an additional 5. But this is also why I was saying with the last special that I don't really care about that ability, because if you are winning the match, then being able to utilize that soft ultimate is not a big deal. Because if you've gone from 5 characters down to 4 and you're still trying to reduce the cooldown of that ability, maybe you get down to 3 characters before you're able to use it, you're already winning the battle by that point. It's going to speed it up, but that's not as big of a concern because usually we're trying to finish with high banners. We don't want to be losing our allies. So in a situation where we're winning, having something that's just going to finish off our enemy quicker isn't really a big deal. So in a grand arena context, I don't really feel like I care. Now next, if Hunter has 15 or more stacks of target practice, he gains a bonus turn when marked expires on enemies. And this is actually something that I didn't fully consider when I was scripting out this video earlier in the portion where we're talking about the first special and how I said we weren't going to rely on that ability too much to apply marked because of the cooldowns and the conditions. That's actually negated by this, because what will happen is when the marked expires, we're getting a bonus turn, and if the first special is off a cooldown, now we can reapply marked because of this condition with the unique. That's very powerful. Whenever Hunter gains a stack of target practice, reduce the cooldown of this will hurt by 1. So this is from Fugitive's kit. Whenever Hunter attacks the same enemy from the previous turn, that's how we're gaining the stacks of target practice. So this, along with defeated enemies, will likely be the major mechanics for reducing the cooldowns for that second special. Next, while Hunter has 40 or more stacks of Soldier of Fortune, enemies are inflicted with buff immunity whenever their buffs are dispelled. That's a nice bonus on offense, but I actually think that we need to think about this a little bit more in terms of if this squad is placed on defense, because it really means that we can't use cleanse abilities after Hunter hits those 40 stacks of Soldier of Fortune, because anytime that we are trying to cleanse our squad, we're just applying buff immunity and shutting down buffs. We have to let debuffs expire on their own, which is going to be annoying, but we need to be careful and cognizant about. When a Bad Batch ally loses captive, reset the cooldown of This Will Hurt. So this is obviously very strong, but remember what conditions need to happen for this to matter. An ally needs to be defeated, so they enter a captive status instead, per Fugitive's kit. Then you have to rescue them by getting stacks of target practice for the rescue objective, and only after hitting those thresholds will you be able to use This Will Hurt. And so this is what I meant when I was saying during the second special, that this is going to be a mechanic that can turn around a battle if you're losing it, where instead of losing, if somebody hits captivity and you're able to rescue them, you may actually be able to win the match from that down position because of these mechanics. That's how they're going to happen more often. But ideally, I don't think we want to be in situations where that's going to occur. Because preferably, we don't want a character entering captivity. It's just nice to know that if it does, we can turn things around. I just don't want to rely on this mechanic as a way to win battles. That seems risky to me. The Omicron Territory Wars, at the encounter start, Hunter has This Will Hurt available. So right off at the beginning of the battle, we're using that big hit. Now, we do want to get the turn order right, because we want Mark to be on a character, which means Batcher needs to go first. That was already how we wanted things from understanding Batcher's kit. But Batcher will apply Marked. Then Hunter will go, and now we can hit that 200% threshold and knock somebody out quickly, which is going to apply Expose, it's going to apply Protection Disruption and Shocked, plus we're getting that defense penetration, so very quickly our opponent is going to be in an extremely vulnerable position. When Hunter gains a stack of target practice, reduce This Will Hurt's cooldown by 5, so that's instead of 1 where it was before, so it's 5 times faster. That's just going to be a couple turns then before we can use it again. If there are no GLs while a Bad Batch ally is captive, Bad Batch allies deal an additional instance of damage to a target enemy on their turn. I don't think that's a big deal. Whenever a marked enemy takes a turn, reduce their max health by 10%, stacking until the encounter. And that I do think is going to be very effective. It means we're going to be marking somebody, and every time that they're taking a turn, they're getting weaker and weaker, and those marks are going to be going around the board very quickly. It means we're going to be taking somebody out very quickly and also reducing more cooldowns. This is likely going to be a top 5 territory war army, but I do have one note of caution. This does require relics on the entire squad because of Fugitive's kit. Fugitive doesn't have full functionality without relics, so I wouldn't rush to use this one. Like Kelleran was viable at 3 stars, that's not going to be the case here, I don't think. Other note is I think this likely turns the squad into a viable defensive option. Without it, in Grand Arena, other game modes, the mechanics of this kit are complicated enough where it requires or will likely require active management. And in this case, this just removes a lot of those requirements and makes it a lot easier for the computer to be stupid, do the wrong thing, and things to still work out. We just have to get the turn order right at the beginning of the battle. The second unique, Soldier of Fortune. Whenever a marked enemy is damaged by a mercenary ally, Hunter gains a stack of Soldier of Fortune. So we can potentially be gaining both stacks of target practice and Soldier of Fortune by attacking the right marked enemies, and that Soldier of Fortune is going to be stacking real quick because everybody is contributing to it. Well, not everybody, because Batcher and Fugitive are not mercenaries, but the rest of the squad will be. Whenever marked is dispelled or expired, Hunter loses 5 stacks of Soldier of Fortune. As long as the squad is fast enough, this shouldn't matter because it just feels like a means to impose a ceiling on the stacks so that they don't get too crazy. At the start of their turn, each mercenary ally gains 3% accuracy for each stack of Soldier of Fortune they have until their next turn. This I would watch out for. In general, accuracy doesn't really matter, so the fact that we are seeing stacking accuracy may point to a future mechanic, I'd guess on Crosshair's kit, where we may finally have a real use for accuracy arrows. So if you don't have any, get a couple with good speed secondaries. I'd advise this in general to hedge against these kinds of possibilities, but this is an indicator that it may finally be their time. It would make sense on a character like Crosshair, somebody who theme is being accurate. So by having high accuracy, it may be impacting his damage, and his damage may be scaling off of this. I mean, that's speculation right now, but it doesn't take too much to come to those kind of conclusions. Cursory look at the gear, just in terms of how much preparation we need to do. It's going to be pretty minimal on this character. It's pretty easy. We don't see any Kairos until gear 9. The choke point is going to be gear 10, where there is 2 sets of Kairos, but there's very little other high demand pieces other than maybe Carbantes. So these days, none of that stuff is an issue for most players. At gear 12, you got hollow lenses, but we don't have to worry about fusion furnaces. We don't have to worry about med packs. Overall, pretty easy. We do have the Chiroprod as the finisher, which is the more common and annoying piece, but overall, I'd say slightly below average in terms of the difficulty of gearing. Now that we have 3 characters, we can start seeing how these pieces are falling into place. Like with Omega, we have the overall target practice, captive, rescue objective mechanics, but we also have to remember the stealth mechanics and how stealth is moving around between the characters. That doesn't tie directly into Hunter's kit, but it is one of the major components of the kit in general. With Batcher, we have more of the synergy with Hunter himself. The marked mechanics in particular, and marked is applied with Piercing Howl on Batcher's kit, the first special. Now, what I think we're going to want to happen is Batcher goes first, uses Piercing Howl to apply marked. Then we can have Hunter goes, and with Take a Shot, we have that mass assist, protection up, and those mechanics that are going to allow that target practice to start stacking quickly and for us to start getting our opponent into these very vulnerable situations where they're going to be overcome by all the attacks and all of the speed mechanics, especially the speed mechanics with Batcher's kit. There's a lot of speed down, a lot of speed up going on, also a lot of off balance within Batcher's kit. Then you have all those control abilities with turn meter removal, daze. You have a lot of recovery and survivability, both with Hunter's kit and with Omega's Hunter with his unique ability providing some recovery. And then Omega with her specials is going to have some protection recovery mechanics. So just like with the original Bad Batch squad, there's a lot of things going on in every single kit, and they all stack together to make the whole much stronger. That wraps up this one. We're going to have several more videos over the course of the week for Datacrons, for the next season of Conquest, looking at the feats, getting all of our preparation in place. And also we need to do Jocasta News kit, but that one's going to take a little bit longer. This week, though, I hope to do a little bit of testing with the Bad Batch to get a feel for the squad, as long as my Grand Arena matches allow it. Last week we were in Kyber 3, we went 3-0, just knocked them out very quickly, just had a short stay there. But now that we're back in Kyber 2 where we usually are, these days it's a little bit harder to do testing, but we're going to try and take advantage if we can. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.